Our second scripture reading is from Matthew chapter 5, verses 13 through 16, and we are going to be watching a video of that reading.
From the book of Matthew chapter 5, verses 14 through 16. You are the light of the world. A city built on a hill cannot be hidden. No one, after lighting a lamp, puts it under the bushel basket, but on the lampstand. And it gives the light to all in the house. In the same way, let your light shine before others, so that they may see the good works and give glory to your Father in heaven.
You are the light of the world, let your light shine. You are the light of the world, let your light shine.
Of Galilee, those penniless, downtrodden day laborers and sharecroppers and fishers and seamstresses, those who loved his words so well that they would follow him halfway up a hill just to listen. Who had ever spoken to them in such a way? Who had ever even seen them and called them the light of the world? In a world where they seemed to matter so little, in a far corner of an occupied land, just a dusty backward province of the empire, they were little more than ghosts and shadows and dreams. But Jesus declares to them, you're the light. Let your light shine. A city built on a hill can't be hid. No one lights a lamp and hides it under a basket. When you light a lamp, you put it on a lampstand, and it gives light to all the house, assuming it's only one room. Think how that must have sounded in the ears of people who thought they were probably nobody, who were systemically downtrodden. You're the light, let your light shine. Well, happy 75th anniversary to you, Bower Hill Church. It was on September 10th, 1950 that this church held its opening service of worship, which we are partially reenacting today. It's hard, isn't it? They worshiped funny back then. You required a longer attention span back in 1950 than we have today. We don't know exactly what the preacher said 75 years ago. All it says in the original bulletin is sermon. We know that it was the minister from East Liberty Presbyterian Church, for they were one of our founding congregations, they in Southminster. We don't even know what scriptures were used, but we know what they sang. We know what the readings were. We know what the prayers were. And our order of service is pretty much the same as the one they used, except there were no children's sermons back then. The kids had to sit with their parents and listen. You remember that, don't you? Oh, and they sang Stand Up for Jesus as the closing hymn, which is not suitable for the 21st century. Just trust me, Google it, read the lyrics. We have picked another hymn for their closing hymn. However, Leah and Clara will be playing Stand Up for Jesus on their violins a little bit later. The theme of our anniversary celebration is Let Our Light Shine. It's taken from these verses in Matthew, which you've just heard. One thing you notice when you walk into this sacred space is that it's not dark like so many of the cavernous churches in our city. And this place is kind of cavernous. Clear light streams through the windows to your right and to your left, because our windows out onto the world need to be clear. We need to see it with clarity if we are to serve it and to love it as Jesus instructs. The window up front, the one that represents not the world, but the mystery that we name God, that window is colorful and opaque, for it speaks of the beauty and the grandeur and the unknown and the ever-rolling seasons of eternity to which we also belong. Let our light shine in colors and in clarity. You know, light's a funny thing. Have you ever been in this room in the dark when there was nobody else in it? It can feel like a scary place. You don't know what's under these pews. If you've ever been here on an Ash Wednesday, on some dark spring evening, or maybe even on Christmas Eve when it's all lit up with candles, it can be 1,000 different rooms, depending on the light that is shed into it. All the regular old places of your life are the same, your living room, your backyard. How many thousands of places have they been, depending on the light, literal and figurative, that shone upon them in that moment? There's the golden tint of the autumn sun, which is yellower than the summer sun. There's the glowering gray of a springtime morning. And there's my favorite. There's a cloudy, snowy day, and the way the light will reflect off the snow and come in your windows and fill your room with kind of a whitish, grayish glow. And we all know that eerie orange glow that comes right before a really bad storm. Light changes. And light changes things. It can change our mood. It can change our perception. It can change our ability to see. Most of you know me. I love to go into the woods alone and spend the night. I go in with a backpack, and I arrive at a spot by a stream, and I say, this is a beautiful place. This is going to be my home for the night. You set up camp. You start a bright fire going. You look around at the beautiful pines, the gurgling brook, but then darkness starts to encroach, and the shadows deepen around you, and those pines start to become gloomy, and you wonder what they're hiding. And the gurgling of the stream could almost sound like voices in the woods. And then you hear a twig snap somewhere off in the shadows, and you start to think about how far you are from your car. I always download a movie onto my phone to distract me from the gathering dark when I'm alone in the woods at night. I know it's cheating. But a place that seemed welcoming and lovely in the daylight can seem kind of spooky when you're alone there in the dark as the light fades. This changing world with its changing light. And yet, the calling that Jesus voiced to the rural poor of his day is still ours today and in the days ahead. You are the light of the world. Let our light shine. What is our congregation's unique way of shedding its light? What color is it for the world? We've just heard a brief snippet from Jesus' most famous discourse, the Sermon on the Mount. Now, I will say this, and I hope it doesn't sound blasphemous. Structurally, the Sermon on the Mount is a mess. It's just a bunch of different thoughts about a bunch of different things. My godson in Cameroon has me teaching a seminary course on Zoom about preaching, where I tell my students a sermon is an essay for the ears. It must be guided by a single clear thesis statement, supported by 2, maybe 3 supporting paragraphs, which restate the thesis in different ways. Jesus didn't need all that. Jesus didn't need all the gimmickry that we modern preachers need. He didn't need to follow those rules that we lesser preachers have to follow. Why? Because Jesus saw into people's souls, and he spoke about what he saw there. When Jesus spoke, the people felt seen. They felt heard. They felt known. They felt loved. The Sermon on the Mount can afford to be a structural disaster because it speaks to all the stuff that his listeners were thinking about and worrying about, unlike many modern sermons. It talks about worry. It talks about anxiety. It talks about human worth and guilt. It talks about fear. It talks about love. It promises its hearers that God loves even the birds and that you are worth more than many birds. It tells them they matter. And that was something they did not often hear. Certainly not from somebody speaking from a hillside. He told them they mattered, and they needed to hear that. All the stuff of modern preaching, Jesus didn't need it because he spoke to his listeners. He spoke to their urgencies. to the things of meaning in their lives. But if you know your Gospels, and I hope you do, you will know that in the Gospel of John, John is the youngest of the Gospels, and it's different from all the others. In the Gospel of John, Jesus says, I am the light of the world. In the older Gospel of Matthew, Jesus says, you are the light of the world. And you are. You're the light of the world. The world would be dark without what you give it. Let it shine. Light changes, doesn't it? Seasons change. Our perceptions change. Think about the year 1950. I can only imagine it. I was not there. 1950, that was the year they started selling silly putty. Kids don't even play with that stuff anymore, do they? Elvis Presley, Chuck Berry, the Lone Ranger on TV. I Love Lucy. World War II was still fresh on everybody's minds, and America was living into its new role as a military power, just beginning to flex its muscles in Korea. Communism was the new scare, and you were finding communists everywhere, weren't you? It was something to rally against. McCarthyism conducted witch hunts, seeking out supposed communists at all levels of society. The old European empires were crumbling under their own weight. The French were getting pummeled in Vietnam and in North Africa. But America with all its promise, we were the new empire, the divinely appointed city on a hill, a beacon of light to the world. We believed that. We really did. It was an age of growth and optimism. Suddenly, everyone could have their own house with a detached garage and a tree and a yard. Blacks fleeing the Jim Crow laws down south were arriving in great numbers in northern cities. White people were moving out to the suburbs, ostensibly for the fresh air, and so that they could have yards and detached houses that weren't all squished together, and off-street parking. In reality, I think it was at least in part because they didn't want to share their neighborhoods with the new arrivals. The nation was vast. Everybody was on the move. California issued its siren call, but Pennsylvania was the crucible, the smoking hearth of the nation. It was the forge on which the nation was being hammered out. And people were suddenly becoming interested in religion. It wasn't one of the great awakenings like we had in previous centuries in America. It was an age when belonging to a church was a social expectation. At church, you met your neighbors. At church, you rubbed shoulders with business associates. You got clients. You made friends. You showed off your best clothes once a week. And the historic mainline Protestant denominations, Methodist, Episcopal, Lutheran, Presbyterian, they were growing fast because they had the cachet of historicity, respectability, but also because they didn't ask you to do anything crazy. They didn't ask you to do anything too religious. Give us an hour on Sunday mornings, drop some money in the plate. If you're a really good Christian, serve on a committee. You're good. As the suburbs rapidly overtook the farmland south of Pittsburgh, a young, charismatic seminary graduate named Bill Barker went knocking on doors. Knocking on doors. I'd go back to teaching English first. He went knocking on doors of the newly constructed homes, inviting people to a new church that he was starting as an overflow to Southminster Presbyterian. Barker intended it to be a neighborhood church, nothing more. But a congregation will always develop an identity. It will always develop a personality of its own, as all groups do. And soon enough, social upheaval gave us ours. The civil rights movement started to rage across the country. Black people were saying, hey, what about us? What about our children? Shouldn't they have opportunities too? Didn't we fight and die alongside you in that awful war? Why shouldn't we have a place in this society too? Most churches, especially in the suburbs, said, that's not really our problem. We're just trying to get into heaven and share casserole recipes. We care, but there are good people down south who are taking care of it. Not all white people in the south were racists. There are good people taking care of it down there. It's not our problem. Let's just do our thing and let them do theirs. We feel bad for those folks. But here in America, there's liberty and justice for all, and they'll get theirs. They should maybe stop complaining. But Bill Barker and other leaders of this church could not unhear the cry. They couldn't unhear it. Wait, look, there is real injustice. There is real darkness in the land of the free. And Barker began preaching a whole new genre of sermon, the social justice sermon. And it wasn't about Jesus and me. It was about the world. It was about society. In time, preaching wasn't enough. The session sent him, Bill Barker, as a representative of this church to the Selma marches. And as a result, I've never gotten the numbers correct, but I have heard that a church of 1,800 members was reduced to a church of 1,000 members almost overnight. And those who walked away were the ones who said, we have no business. That's not our problem. That's not what a church should be doing. It's not our concern. But those who stayed were the ones who thought, yes, followers of Jesus will stand up for justice. Followers of Jesus will stand up for the other. Followers of Jesus will stand up for the unwanted, those whom Jesus called the light of the world. And those who believed that stayed, and a congregational identity was born. We could no longer be just a neighborhood church. We became a church that sought justice. Our calling was born to name the light even in the unwanted of the world, to shine our light on them so it might shine back, so that their light can shine too. It took maybe a decade and a half, but Bower Hill emerged as a church that cares not just about the next world, but this one. A church that will stand with the marginalized, the disenfranchised, the unwanted, those that Jesus called the light. Our job today, and looking into the future, must be to remind the unwanted that they are the light of the world, that they hold light that must be shared. That is who we are today, and as we look to the future, it is who we must be. Our calling is to see the light in those that nobody wants. Our calling is to draw in the marginalized out of the shadows and to help them shine their light back into this sometimes dark world. That identity, as you know, didn't end with the civil rights movement. There was the 1970s with dances and boxing matches in Fellowship Hall. You can still see the rings up on the stage where they had the boxing, I don't even know what it's called, the ropes. And current members of First Baptist Church of Bridgeville who worship in our building used to walk up the hill and dance with all the white kids in this church. And then in the 1980s, well, we also brought a family of refugees over from Vietnam in the 70s. In the 1980s, we had female pastors. That was unheard of, but we had them. In the 1990s, we hosted a family fleeing the war in the Balkans. In the 2010s, we began water purification projects in Haiti. And following that, we started housing homeless families in the church building. 2014 saw us conducting the first of many gay weddings right here in this room. And that's the same year that the director of the South Hills Interfaith Movement told us in a letter, Bower Hill, I wish I could clone you. In 2019, we were standing with refugees and immigrants, and it cost us a few members again. And I regret that. But living into your identity is always costly. This is only a brief survey of the ways that Bower Hill has reached out to people on the margins in its history. It's what we do. It's who we are. It's our DNA. And it's who we will remain as we lean into the future that God has for us. It's how we shine the light that has been entrusted to our care. We don't all do it the same. Different churches do different things. Look at the colors in the window behind me, as I said to the kids. I learned this. I thought I was going to be doing a whole physics discourse on the nature of light and what it is. It's far too hard. Light is mysterious. Light is difficult. Did you know that light not only lets you see color, it creates color? Light is energy, like I guess most things, but it travels in beams. And when the beam hits an object, all the colors that are contained in the light, for light is every color, all of those get absorbed except the color you see. It's crazy. It is even believed that some animals have primary colors that we don't know. Can you believe it? That there could even be colors we've never seen. It's crazy to think about. When Jesus calls the poor people of Galilee the light of the world, isn't he saying that their beauty, their color matters and should be seen and should be known, that they bring clarity and vision, that they show the way, that they too must be allowed to shine? There are undiscovered colors in the universe, just waiting for the light to call them out, just as there are people with no standing and no voice waiting for their colors to be seen, waiting to shine their light. Some churches will call out the colors of the world by making use of the arts. Others will have a spectacular worship service. Others will have after-school programs for kids. Others will put on a really good concert series. That's how they shine their light. We will let our light shine by drawing the outsider in. The light around us has changed down through the years, but our calling has not. Return now to those bedraggled poor on the mountainside to whom Jesus said, you're the light. That is our task. It is our calling to see the light where no one else sees it, to name it, to let it shine. Happy 75th Bower Hill. Now, let our light shine. Amen.